Rap Radio. Raw and uncut.
Cubo, and welcome to Chicano Rap Radio. I'm your homie Snipes holding it down, and today we have heavyweight music producer and vocalist D Salas. So without further ado, let's welcome the homeboy to the show. What's up, D? How you doing today?
Good, man. I'm so glad you asked me to do this, bro. It's a pleasure being here, man.
Thank you. And I feel like I say this every week, but it's really true, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. We're very happy to have you here. We're very thankful, and we appreciate you making the time to join us. I Before we get into who D Salas is and your music production and everything else that you do to contribute to to the industry and the culture, I wanted to touch a little bit on what's most recent in your life, which is the passing of your father. I wanted to say my deepest condolences to you and your family for your loss. Can you just give us a little background information on who your father was and what he represented to you in regards to the music and as a father?
Yeah. So my father played a huge role in my career, and of course, in me just falling in love with music. My father was the uh, co-founder, along with my uncle, of the group Tierra, which had several hits in the early '80s. They're the first Chicano band to have four crossover hits in one year, uh, and their biggest being "Together," song "Together, Baby,"
Hmm.
and which my uncle sang. And my father was the producer, my uncle was the singer, my father was band leader. But I grew up in the studio. I just grew up in the studio watching them. I watched them record that first album, and I took a lot of it in. And just being in the house of my dad, a guitar player, a great guitar player, was something that I guess it just I really ingested. It's just like I was consumed by music constantly around my dad. So he played a huge role, not just in music, but just of course in business and life and politics. I mean, he's my dad. You know how it is,
Right,
man.
right. He had a
And
big influence in you
big
wanting to get
influence.
into music, right?
Yeah, big, big. And he passed away in December 29th due to COVID, which is
Oh,
completely unexpected. But we're thankful that well, my family is thankful that he created such a big legacy, and hopefully I move forward in trying to continue that legacy as well.
yeah, yeah. Well, I appreciate and I recognize you being humble, but I think you're also doing a great job in carrying on the torch. It sounds to me like music, is a big part of your family and your background. I mean, your dad and your uncle,
Mhm.
formed a group that became to at the time really kind of lead for Chicanos making music. I mean, I believe that song that you're talking about, Together. I think that one charted at number 9 on the Billboard R&B charts, and it was number as high as 18 in the Billboard Hot 100. Not
That's
to
it.
mention number 1 on LA radio for several weeks. So that's a
Yeah.
huge contribution, especially at a time when there was a big cultural shift from Mexican Americans or Chicano artists getting the recognition, in regards to the music. He was also involved in another group, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, in El Chicano. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, my uncle and my dad were originally started recording with them. Um, uh, I believe well, their very first album. But right away, my uncle and my dad went on to found another group called Maya, which recorded. I can't remember the name of the record company, but it was in this like maybe 69 or 70. It might have been 70. But their major breakthrough album was on 20th Century Fox. That was their very first album, which wasn't really what they ended up doing later in the '80s as far as the R&B. They were doing mostly
Hmm.
like rock, kind of like
So,
Montana-ish, yeah, rock soul, real progressive stuff. I mean, it was
hmm
just like mind-blowing stuff, psychedelic,
Right.
some of it,
Right. Right.
we would mix mariachi with rock and all kinds of different stuff. And then that's really where I got my, you know, my guitar playing from, and my influences, is from the early stuff. But yeah, so that they went on to have a career mostly as an R&B act, but they did a lot of rock in the early years, you
Right,
know.
right, and I think they also experiment. I mean, their music, like you said, it was very like very futuristic sound, because they were experimenting with rock and funk and blues and jazz. I think
Yeah,
even a little bit of salsa flavor
exactly,
in there.
exactly.
So that's pretty revolutionary, and I understand why they came to get the kind of recognition that they got. Now, you mentioned that they played a role, or your dad's played a role in regards to you following in the music steps, and also playing the guitar. You also sing. Which came first? I mean, did you sing before you picked up the guitar? Was it
Not at all.
simultaneously?
I
You don't
was the
remember,
worst
huh?
singer I was horrible for many, 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 many years,
Yeah.
In fact, I was primarily a guitar player, and but
Okay.
singing in the studio primarily came from necessity, because some labels didn't want to pay for a singer. And
Right.
we'd hear something, and I'd sing it, and I'd fix it up, and I'm like, okay, that sounds good enough. But
Right.
early on, and when I was geez, maybe 16 or 17, I was already gigging with a band that's kind of well known right now. It's called Down with Three, and
Mm-hmm.
they're big in the new jazz market,
Mm-hmm.
contemporary jazz, and they do a lot of stuff. They're pretty well known, and I started singing with them when I was 15 or 16, I believe. I'm playing with them. But we had phenomenal singers, in the band. Always had phenomenal singers, so there's no reason for me to sing. If anything,
Right.
I'd be like, play that funky music, while
Yeah.
boy,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
singing
Background.
background or something like But it taught me enough to get by in the studio, and of course, in the studio with my dad and my uncle, I mean, who are both prolific singers, studying the way they arrange vocals, and knowing harmonies, and knowing how they pushed each other to get the best vocal performance.
Right.
Especially my uncle is, you know, crazy about that. Getting the actual best vocal performance. So of course that played a huge influence on me being in the studio. And then ultimately it was just after a while, I'm a music producer. I did it every single day. You get better and better. Just like anything, practice and
Right.
practice, and
You got to put in the hours.
yeah. And now I could say I'm a good singer. you know,
Okay.
I'm
But
not.
you
I'm
were a
not the most.
terrible singer now. Oh, you were a
Yeah.
terrible
I
singer,
mean,
but now you're a good singer.
to be honest, sometimes I like listen to myself. I'm like, oh God, I can't stand my voice. But I know I'm hitting the right notes. I'm knowing putting my
Yeah.
maximum motion in it, and that's all I could ask for.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And I think being an artist, I think we're the hardest on ourselves,
yeah.
which I think it just comes hand in hand. I mean, sometimes you have to be, because that's the only way you're going to get better sound or better music out of you. Tell me just a little bit more about your dad, maybe in regards to like the personal side of your dad, how he was in regards to any kind of lessons that he taught you that didn't have to do with music. How was he in regards to raising you?
Well, my dad. Early on, I learned a good work ethic from him, because my dad was really, really instrumental in getting the big album, which is called City Nights, and it was
Right.
released independently originally. And my dad, he would drive around. We had a beat up old white van, and I would help him load boxes into it. And he'd drive from store to store to store, put posters up. No matter what it was, he was doing it. And there was no, there was no, nothing he couldn't do when he put his mind to it. There was no
Right.
limit. And whether it was music or business, which I do both, and I kind of followed in that. So he taught me a lot of that. He was very competitive. I mean, when we used to play basketball, he was always wanting to win. And
Good.
we played basketball for a very long time, all the way up until I was what 30, probably 34.
Good.
I mean, we were really competitive. So that of course that is in me as well, as far as
So,
being super
so he
competitive.
always pushed you and challenged you to, to be
Exactly.
the best that you could be. Now, is there any kind of like advice that you can share with us that your dad, gave you in regards to the music business? Anything, any subject?
Just, the main thing is, like I mentioned a little bit before, is like put your emotion and your heart into it, and as long as you do that and don't try to be like somebody else, and be experimental, because there's really no rules, I mean, in regards to, like, there's some rules as far as like scales and certain things like that, but in regards to how a person perceives the music, I mean, there's stuff that at first I'll listen to and I'll be like, wait, that note's a little off, and then as you listen to it, it's like, who cares? It was a great
Yeah,
song. It was a
yeah,
great
yeah.
performance. In
Right,
the beginning of Why Can't We Be Friends? If you listen to War, they hit a nasty note, ba 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 ba.
right.
But
Yeah,
I make it. So what? It's a great song.
right,
It's a you know. So there's a
right.
lot of songs that when you listen back, that kind of that applies to. But my dad was really a master at just kind of finding the right emotion,
Hmm.
and he taught me a lot in regards to that. And of course, the big thing is really keeping your business straight, and uh, keeping your goals in focus.
Right, right. And I think as an artist, I think that's one of the biggest challenges for people is that you focus so much on being an artist that you're not always keeping an eye on the royalties or certain things that, the business side. I mean, it's the music business, and most people just focus on the music, and they don't
Exactly.
know much about the business. And it sounds like your dad learned those things early on. It seems to me like your dad was big into family. I mean, can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, my dad, yeah, it was just my sister and I, and my mom. And my mom really, really brought us. She brought. See, what happened was, when I was 9 or 10 years old, she had to hit it big. You know,
Yeah.
Before, my pops was mostly there, but my mom was working to help my dad accomplish his goals and dreams. Um, so she worked, full time, and my dad took care of us as kids, but he also was there practicing his craft.
Nice.
When the time came, when it suddenly just blew up, in 1980, uh, my father was gone for a while. It was like I didn't see him for months because he was on tour.
Right, right.
He'd be gone 3 months at a time. And so my mom took the load, but my dad ended up, when he'd come back, of course, it was just like incredible to see my dad back. But then as they started doing their albums, I started getting used to the schedule. But then
Hmm.
as I got older, I started going with him, to the shows, which
That's
is a big
cool.
deal for me, to
Yeah.
see my dad on stage and doing his thing, and having having the people love him, having the
Right.
people sing the songs back to him. I mean, the thrill, you know, um, of it as a kid, to see that, was just overwhelming. And even as an adult, I would see that and I would just be like, wow, that's incredible,
That
singing his
sounds like,
song.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's pretty cool to experience. Sounds like he was a big inspiration, for you, not just from a father figure, but also in regards to the music. Now, what kind of legacy do you think your dad left behind?
Well, I think the important legacy, well, many, but I think one of the important ones is the fact that he opened the door for Chicanos, because I mean,
Right,
they were unabashed Chicano in 1980, when it just wasn't happening. They
right,
came out with
right.
zoot suits,
Yeah,
and they used the
he
lingo,
was
and
proud. He was
they
proud
were,
of his heritage and his culture.
yeah. And one of the very first big spreads, or press they had, was for Life magazine, which is,
It's
primarily just
huge.
yeah, it's huge, and it's an Anglo publication primarily, but
Right, right.
they're in there with lowriders and this and
Yeah,
that, and the Life magazine was talking about the burgeoning Chicano music scene, and they were at the forefront, and that was even before the song hit,
right.
Together hit, but you could see something was happening. The Chicanos were becoming bigger influence, particularly in the Southwest.
Hmm.
But when that happened, when Together happened, it did open the doors for a lot of people. Um, And fortunately, my family and my mom and my sister were there to experience that. And my dad, to see my dad smiles and look back at the pictures now, it's man, it's just incredible to look back on that.
Right, right. And I want to stress that I really appreciate you sharing these intimate moments and this very personal loss for you with us. I want to get a little bit more into the music, but before we get away from the legacy of your dad and what he did in regards to contribute to the culture, is there what's one thing that you would want the world to remember about your dad, or how do you want the world to remember your dad?
Well, let me tell you one thing that the other day. This is kind of related to that. The other day, I picked up my guitar to learn a song that he wrote called "A Place Called Home," and it was written for my grandmother. Um, I urge you to go listen to it. It's called "A Tierra, A Place Called Home," and when you listen to it, it's a beautiful song, beautiful song. But as I tried to learn it, because I want my sister and my uncle and myself to sing it, because my sister's a good singer as well.
Right.
I started getting into the chords, and I realized how genius it was. My dad wrote as far as the chord structure, because he would go into like minor and majors within the same phrase. And so, when you think about it, like theoretically, when you learn in school, what I learned in school at Cal State
Music
LA was,
theory.
yeah, music theory. That's not supposed to work. So he would do some things that weren't supposed to work. And I was talking to my
Right.
uncle the other day. I was like, that's not supposed to work. So there's, certain songs that I think that people need to look back on. Place Called Home is one of them. Barrio Suite is another. That was on the very first album Tierra made. And that, it's genius. And I hope people look back and appreciate and enjoy my dad's music, but also the fact that my dad was a generous, kind man. He was always cool to people, and he never, like, if somebody wanted to take a picture with him, you're gonna get a picture with him. And he
That's
never
awesome.
turned down. He always understood that his whole existence with Tierra was dependent on the fans, and he
For
did
the
everything
people.
he can to make them happy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. I think I want to get more into the music, and again, your father was a great person. He was a great musician, and he contributed a lot to our culture, and we're thankful for his contributions. Let's take a quick little break, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Chicano Rap Radio, raw and uncut.
Hit us up at 805-395-6595 for your special requests, dedications, and shout-outs. Chicano Rap Radio, raw and uncut.
Welcome back to Chicano Rap Radio. We're chopping it up with legendary music producer D Salas. We were talking about the legacy and the contribution of his father, Rudy Salas. He played a huge role in regards to contributing to Chicano culture and Chicano music, and gaining us, helping gain more acceptance, and kind of opening the door for what became Chicano rap, and a lot of all these other
Mhm.
Latin artists. I wanted to get a little bit more in regards to your contribution in Chicano rap, because I know you've worked with a lot of artists. You've produced a lot of artists. You've done vocal work for a lot of artists. What are some of the artists that you've worked with, that have contributed to Chicano rap?
Right off the top of my head, it's big MC Magic, Miss Crazy, Chino Grande, Magic Loco, Little Cuete, um,
Brown Boy.
Brown Boy, Baby Bash, Lil Rob, um, God, Taboo, the Bad Time Kings, but
It's a big list. Yeah,
yeah,
no,
it's a big list.
it's a
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
Jasper Loco. I mean, you did a lot of work with
pretty much
Charlie
all of
Rowe.
Urban Kings records.
Right, 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 right.
I've done all of that. Going
And
out as far as Spanish Chicano, Spanish and Chicano music, I did La Sinfonía Don Abusivo El Pecador from the
mhm,
Mexicans.
right. I think I mean Cuete Yesca. I mean there's so many different. You
Yeah,
worked with Night Owl. You worked with
Night
so
Owl,
many
Little
different
One, Mr.
artists.
Shadow,
Right,
yeah,
right.
a whole bunch.
So it would be an understatement to say that you had a contribution. I think you play a big role in regards to developing the sound. Now, what do you think is unique about your sound that other producers, don't have when it comes to working with Chicano rap artists?
Well, I think the guitar is probably the main thing that I well, at least as a producer, I do pride myself on the fact that I'm able to incorporate live guitar in it, and but not just live guitar, but a lot of the lines are moving in the same vein as like El Chicano, Malo, Santana. The bass lines and the guitar work are what I like to bring to the tracks that I produce.
Yeah,
Um, and I guess that would be the identifier of my sound.
yeah,
And but I also, I mean, I'm blessed to have worked with such talented people, and sometimes they'll bring me something and ideas. Hey, try this, try that. And especially Night Owl. Night Owl gives me some tracks, and I'm like, whoa, how am I going to do that?
yeah. Can you think
And
of one where he brought to you and it was maybe like a challenge or did
well,
something
I can't
different
think
for
of the
you?
names but it was on. I mean, there's a whole bunch because Nida likes to rap in the 3/4 speed, like, dun, 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 which is different, because it's more like banda and stuff
Yeah,
like that. So
it's
it's a
different
little
count.
more. Yeah, it's a different count. So it's not actually a lot of rappers can pull off a 3/4 speed, and so it's a little when it's challenging, it's fun.
Yeah,
So I don't mind when people say, "Hey, try this or try that." Thankfully, going back to my dad, my dad was a music lover, so he had vinyl of pretty much every genre. And
yeah,
as Chicanos, we generally are exposed to a lot of different types of music.
right,
Probably more so than other cultures.
right, right.
I grew up with Ozzy, Vicente Fernandez, Los Dandies, and Stevie Wonder, Poncho Sanchez,
Wow.
Santana, all in the house.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's a blend.
Motley Crue, Black Sabbath. I mean,
Oh wow.
so I was all over the place. So I mean,
Yeah.
I just did everything.
And it's found its way into the music. I think when I listen to the beats that you've produced, I do see that lineage, passed down from your father and your uncle down to you, which finds its way into the music. Well, I mean, you have a lot of great songs, but one of my favorite songs that you produce, for Chino Grande is called a Smooth Chicano Flavor, and the guitar on that, I mean, you talk about Santana or that sound, I mean, it was just like it's off the chain, so I could see how that influence has played a role, and you're such a good guitarist. I mean, I think you're a dual threat because you also sing, and I think
That was actually,
sometimes.
if I remember correctly, that was my dad and my uncle singing that hook.
Was it?
Yeah. That's my
Wow.
dad and my uncle singing the hook. So
But
funny
you
you
did
brought
the
that one
you did
up.
the beat, right? You did the
Yeah,
beat,
I did the
right?
beat. I did all the guitars, but my dad and my uncle sang the hook on that. But yeah, that was a
You
cool
guys did
song.
such a good job because it sounds like modern. It definitely sounds like hip hop or rap, Chicano rap, but it still has that flavor. I mean, the song itself, smooth Chicano flavor. I mean, I think if you're listening right now and you haven't heard this song, you're missing out. Make sure you go check it out because it encompasses so many, good sounds, so many different talents between D Salas and his uncle and his dad, and not to mention Chino Grande on the verse. So go check it out. You've also worked with with other people. I mean, you
Right.
not only produce music, but you also do you've done film scores, correct?
Yeah. I've done. I did well, actually not scores. So scores is like the background music,
Oh,
and
okay.
basically, but
My
what I
bad.
did was I contribute songs to movies. The one that I worked very close with was the director John Singleton, who passed away.
Yeah.
Um, but he did Boys in the Hood, and
Right.
I can't remember the other ones, but he had some big movies. I did, I think it was 6 or 7 songs in that movie, and that was like basically he would tell me I need like he didn't reggaeton was booming at the time, but he didn't want reggaeton. He wanted something, a little R&B, a little pop, then a little reggae. So we actually flew to Jamaica for that movie, and I worked
Wow,
in Bob Marley's studio,
that's really cool.
Tough Gong, I think that's what it's called, Tough Gong, with his son Stephen Marley and Damon Marley. So
Wow.
we knocked out 3 tracks in that studio there, and we ended up. Uh, I think they ended up mixing it, but I produced the whole. I would say seven songs, I think, and then
Yeah.
I did. I mean, tons of movies. I probably have TV programs. I probably have 300 songs in different shows, and the other notable one was the movie Philly Brown with Jenny Rivera. I did a song with her and Smokey Robinson, which is a dream come true for me. I mean, Smokey was just to have him in the studio and me directing his vocals. It was like unbelievable, but he was so kind, and he was like, don't worry about it, baby, just be you, do you. It was really
Mhm.
cool, man.
Right, right. And tell me a little bit more about your relationship with Smokey Robinson, because I know you guys are pretty close, and you guys work together actually quite often. Can you tell me a little bit more about your relationship with him?
Actually, no, I didn't. I only worked with him for that. That was Smokey Robinson. I worked with him for that project.
Oh, I'm
And that
sorry. My apologies. I was thinking Bretton Wood.
Brentwood. Okay, yeah,
Yeah, my apologies. Tell
yeah,
me a little
no,
bit
no,
more
no.
about your relationship with Bretton Wood, because I know you've also worked with him.
Yeah, Brentwood. I worked with him in a different capacity. Brenton had a lot of problems with his royalties, and
Mm,
I assisted him in correcting a whole bunch of stuff. Just like many artists back in the day, the older artists, they were taken advantage of, and
by big labels.
yeah, by big labels. And a couple years prior, I started a company called Artist Royalty Music Services,
Okay.
primarily because my father was missing a lot of royalties as well. So I ended up looking into my father's situation, because I knew as a producer I was getting my money, but I couldn't figure out what my dad, there seemed a lot of problems going on there. So I looked into it, and there's somebody collecting for him in Norway, and somebody was going somewhere else. So I fixed it, and he had big chunks of money coming his way finally, after many, many years. That kind of turned into like Malo, and a lot of his musical peers, the Midnighters, and of course Bretton Wood. And I got real tight with Bretton Wood, and ended up finding him a lot of money, because he's a talented guy, and he had a talented songwriter, and he ended up getting a lot of money that was back to him, sent back to him. So
Well, I think it sounds to me that it was kind of like an opportunity, or I don't know if if you stumbled upon that side of the music business, that you're doing now, because I know you it started off with that, but then now you offer that services to others. Is that correct? Can you tell me a
that's
little bit
correct.
more about that?
Yeah, it did start off with opportunity to help a lot of my dad's peers, but it quickly realized a lot of people are in need of this. So I helped while Young Buck, my Bubba Sparks, Spice One, Drew Down. I mean, of course, Frost. I
Wow.
have probably about 120 something clients of all different genres, and from here to Russia, you know.
Hmm.
So it's a my company has done a lot of good for people who have been taken advantage of, and I take
Right.
a lot of pride in that. Take a lot of
Yeah.
pride in that.
Yeah. And for the people that maybe aren't familiar with the more technical side, or more the music business side, in regards to what you're talking about, can you give us like a quick layman's term in regards to specifically what it is that your company does for people? The royalties, and maybe how that works.
Yeah, so there are new types of royalties, specifically one called enabling rights, that a lot of artists overlook. And it's for artists that have spins on non-interactive radio like Pandora. That doesn't get sent. That's just for the performance. So you didn't have to write the song. It doesn't go to the label. That's specific for the artist. The artists these days, a lot of them have no idea that even exists. So that's one big one. But the other thing is, right now it's kind of the Wild West, particularly with YouTube, where anybody can make a claim on anybody's song.
Mm,
So particularly the writing, and it's a big problem, especially within the rap community, which they do so many songs, and they'll do it on the strength, and then suddenly they get a video has 6 million views, but they never reported it, registered it, or anything like that. So my company basically organizes all the royalties and collects properly for them. Now, the great thing, what I realized early on, is that a lot of artists don't want to like trust somebody with their royalties. So what we did was we're very transparent. We just basically share an email. They'll see all the documents, all the registrations, all the statements. None of the money goes to my company. It all goes to them, and then they pay me once I deliver. And most people would think, well, how do you know they're going to pay you when you're doing something for them, and
Right.
like that? 99% of the clients pay me, so that's not even an issue. But we designed it that way to ensure that the artist continues to always have trust in us,
Yeah.
and as a measure of transparency.
Right. And that makes total sense, because I mean the whole problem starts or grows because there is a lack of transparency, and the artist after a while doesn't trust anybody because they're like, oh man, this
That's
guy burned me. Why
exactly
should I
it.
trust you?
That's exactly it. And especially the older artists, because they're just burned so bad
Yeah.
from record labels, misreporting, underreporting. But the thing is that these days you can't underreport. I mean, you could literally see how many Spotify plays you got, how many Pandora plays you got.
Right.
So there's basically that's what I do. I'll get all the tracking and say approach a label or approach a publisher and like, look, we know how many spins we got, and this is the thing.
You shake him down, David? Is that what you do?
Pretty much. Yeah. And most of the time we don't need I'm not a lawyer, but I take it up to a point where we need a lawyer, like
Right.
particularly with Young Buck, of course. It's all known that he's had some major problems with 50 Cent, who I actually had to deal with on a one-on-one basis,
Wow.
to get him extricated from that deal. But there's a lot of good stuff we've done, and I'm very honored to have the clients that I have, and to do
Oh.
a lot of good things for them.
Well, it sounds to me like you're carrying on a great tradition in regards to contributing and giving back to the culture, to the music world. Not only are you contributing in regards to the music, your music production, you being a vocalist, but also the business side and looking out for the artist, because at the end of the day, we do this because we love it, but that's what most of us, or most people who aren't as business savvy, that's how they get taken advantage of, because someone who is more business savvy comes in and they use their talent to enrich themselves. So big
Let me
props
give
for
you a
doing that.
perfect example that actually I
Yeah.
just found out yesterday. Just yesterday, I have an artist in Mexico. I won't say his name, but he's very big in Mexico. He's a big rapper in Mexico. Some of his videos have upwards of 80 to 100 million
Wow.
streams. But he had no idea. But somebody in the Dominican Republic is collecting all his royalties and saying they're the writer. So
Wow.
things like that. It's our company basically. So what I have to do basically is approach BMI and have that reversed, and hopefully get retroactive money, which is going to be a little harder because he's in the Dominican Republic, but it's
Right.
doable. So, but artists forget, like, this is, like you said, I think right in the beginning, this is still the music business, and the
Right.
business side of it seems to be forgotten by a
Right.
lot of people at times, and
Right.
I'm just
Right.
here to help.
Well, we
More than anything.
appreciate it. We appreciate it. I want to get a little bit more in regards to your music, because I know you also put out music, as an artist. But let's take another quick little break, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Chicano Rap Radio, raw and uncut.
Chicano Rap Radio, raw and uncut.
Welcome back to Chicano Rap Radio. We've been chopping it up with D Salas, talking about a lot of different, topics in regards to the music business and, his creativity. I want to get a little bit more in regards to what you do. You as an artist, the music that you've put out, and perhaps any future projects. I know that sometimes you put out singles, and I know you've also worked with your wife. Do you have any like upcoming projects that we, the fans, can keep an eye out for?
Yeah, well, my wife and I have an album coming out called Love and Pain. It's under Daphee and D Salas, Daphee, and D Salas.
Okay.
And and it's kind of a throwback to like 70s music. There's some funk tracks, there's some old school love tracks, but these are not remakes. These are all original songs.
Okay.
So we're
So
very
they're
proud
not
of that.
covers. They're not covers. They're all original
Well,
music.
I believe there are 3 remakes, but very obscure songs. There's nothing like well-known songs. These are
Right. Right.
I came across and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna redo that. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's 3 songs that we didn't write, but I think there's 9 of them that are original. So
And is this a EP or a full length album?
it's a full length album. It's a full length album, and I believe it's going to be coming out on Thump Records. But we're
Wow.
going to have vinyl, and it's I believe in fact I wrote the release date. I think it's April 2nd, if I remember correctly, because we literally just sealed the deal yesterday. So,
Oh,
but
great.
I'm very proud of it because I've sang on a lot of other people's albums, but never put out anything on my own. So now
Right.
although I'm doing this with my wife, this is I moved to Lake Arrowhead, and we put a little studio here, and it's isolated, and we get to do music all the time. So we came up with this album, and we're super proud of it.
Tell me a little bit more behind the concept of the album, or the title of the album. Why did you title it? Was it Pain and Love?
Well, my wife titled it, and
Okay.
it had because I think because of the lyrical concept, it does deal with some love, some pain, and but it's everything in between though. I mean, there's some songs that really speak to that, but I think the melodies and the concept and the sound really evokes an emotion, and that's what she felt when she titled it. There's not a song called Love and Pain on there though. Now that I think about it, no.
And is the album complete already?
Yeah,
Is
it's
it ready
done
to go?
deal. It's done deal.
Nice.
We actually did put it up. In fact, you could find it online now, but it's only going to be up for probably another 3 or 4 weeks. So you go to Spotify and look for Daphee and D Salas, Love and Pain. But we're going to be re-releasing it through Thump because they liked it so much they picked it up. So they're gonna go all out on it, because we were just doing it on our own, But if we get bigger distribution and get it out there, and I'm like, okay, let's do this. So
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, it's a nod to your skills, and obviously they want to be involved. I mean, Thumb Records has been around, for a long time, and I'm sure they want to work with you and they want to do it right. So, congratulations on that project. Now, one of the big things that I think right now is very powerful in regards to putting out music is the visual component to it. Are you going to have any music videos or any singles
absolutely, yeah,
dropping?
we already shot a music video. It was a
Great.
little difficult. It was a little difficult because of COVID, but
Right.
we had to take some measures to keep everybody safe. But yeah, we got a video. For the first single is going to be "Fool for You." I'll send you that so you can look
Okay.
at it.
All right. Cool. Yeah,
And
we'd love to listen. We promise not to leak it. And well, actually, you said
don't
it's
tell her not
already
to
out.
slap me. Yeah,
Oh,
don't.
we we won't do that, but we appreciate any exclusive music that we get from producers or artists, and we value it, and we'll protect it very well. So the video, is that going to come out before the release of the album?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm not sure exactly when, because like I said, with Thump Records, now they're going to do a whole like a marketing thing on it, and whereas I was just thinking my wife and I would do it on our own, but if they could get their marketing team behind it, we haven't figured out the dates yet exactly when we're going to release it, but I would say probably within the next 3 weeks, the video,
Okay.
but
Great.
the album would be out much later.
Tell me the name of that single again.
Fool for You,
Okay. Okay.
Daphee and D Salas.
Okay. Daphee and D Salas, Fool for You, new single coming out in the next 3 weeks. They have an album coming out sometime first week of April. I think you mentioned April 2nd with on Thump Records. It's a full length album, and I think you're gonna hit it out the ballpark with this one because I mean, just judging from all the work that you've done, everything that all your contributions that you've already
Thank
done
you,
in
man.
regards to the music. I mean, I can't wait to hear it. Now, before we end this interview, are there any last words, either of advice or just anything that you want to leave the listeners with?
I would say just keep supporting Chicano music. My dad and my uncle blazed the trail in the '80s, and I'm glad to continue that legacy. But also keep supporting Snipes, Chicano Rap Radio, and
That's right.
anything Chicano culture. We're a big, strong community, and the numbers don't lie, man. And we have a lot of power as long
Right.
as we continue to support each other.
Right.
And
Right.
thank
Right.
you for all the support up to now. I'm blessed to be doing the job that I love, and I owe it to the fans.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think it's also a trade off that we're also thankful for the music that you provide us, because there's so many different, music is so powerful, and I'm sure there's a song out there that resonates with everybody, so thank you for putting out great music. Thank you for your contribution, not just from you and your wife, but also from the whole Salas family. You guys are definitely big contributors to the music culture, the Chicano culture, and we appreciate the time you took to join us. We look forward to your album. We'll definitely support it when it comes out. And thank you for joining Chicano Rap Radio.
Right on, man. Thank you for having me, bro.
You're listening to Chicano Rap Radio, raw and uncut.
Chicano Rap Radio, raw and uncut.